which I think is a very timely and as well as a very relevant initiative in the times that we live in currently. Well, I would make a presentation on the impact of the neoliberal policies in the Indian economy over the last 2 decades on the Indian peasantry as well as the larger agrarian question that is confronting the country as of now. Well, if I can just briefly take you to the historical agricultural policy in the post-independent period in India, we see that there was the most important agrarian or agricultural reform that took place in our country was the partly technological technocratic policy of the Green Revolution, which was undertaken in the mid-60s somewhere. But one has to be careful when one says that or when one tries to characterize the Green Revolution as a technocratic policy prescription, because along with the introduction of high-yielding seeds and use of more chemical, the prescription of use of more chemical inputs into agriculture, what one also saw was a whole set of institutional reforms which accompanied these prescriptions during that time, and that had widespread implications for the agrarian class structure as well as the agrarian question that emerged following these policies. And although there has been a lot of debate regarding the spread of the Green Revolution or the benefits of the Green Revolution across the country, particularly critics have pointed out to the unevenness of the benefits that have gone both in terms of different regions as well as different sections of the peasantry or the rural population which draws its livelihood from agriculture, and it was largely a class of large landowners who got the initial benefits of this particular policy. But over time, people from different ideological schools of thought have also agreed on the fact that there was a early or late emergence of a class of capitalist farmers or rich peasants in different regions. In some regions where the Green Revolution was experienced only a decade and a half later, when there was certain other institutional initiatives taken on the question of land redistribution, and there were limited land reforms which only allowed the benefits of Green Revolution to set in certain regions. But the large consensus amongst policymakers and the academia has been that this class of capitalist farmers have been developing, and in a context of not only the large landowners but also amongst the inner agricultural setting which is predominantly characterized by small-scale agriculture or say petty production, if we can use that term. And now what we have seen in the last few decades has been a total reversal, or if not a total reversal, but a very strong tendency towards reversal of state support to agriculture, and particularly to petty productive activities in rural areas. And given the neoliberal thinking, we find that there is a tendency towards downsizing the incentive pricing mechanisms that were introduced earlier in support of small-scale agriculture, which also played a major role in the country attaining food self-sufficiency in the post-independent period. And also we see the near total collapse of the public extension services that were provided to farmers of different ranges in the different regions of the country. As well as a major concern has been the rise of enormous levels of indebtedness amongst all sections of, or nearly all sections of the peasantry over the last 2 decades. The most tragic manifestation of which has been the continuous suicide of farmers, or mass suicides of farmers in the rural countryside. which, as some figures put in, there has been nearly or over 200,000 farmer suicides in the last 15 years, starting from say somewhere from the mid-90s to till present, and it's a process which still continues even today. And after the initial denial that the governments, not only the central government but even the state governments, tried to adopt the denial mode, as in the farmer suicides were something which was determined sociologically or some other reasons. It was a psychological phenomenon. There has been some recognition now, after a long period of time, that these are driven by economic concerns, and where farmers or petty producers are unable to reproduce or undertake a simple reproduction of their peasant systems. Now, what I am going to focus is, what we see is that if we adopt a peasant class analysis, or the analysis of the different peasant classes that have emerged in history in India, and what is happening to them now. Well, of course, if you look at the poor peasants and the small peasants who are who sell their labor to other farm households on the net analysis, although they have some land where they cultivate too, have definitely suffered in terms of getting lesser agricultural wages in when they sell their labor. But what is more disturbing, and is more disturbing for the country's agricultural sector's future as a whole, is that even these classes, the rich peasant classes or the net labor exploiting peasant classes, which were driving the capitalist accumulation and growth of the sector for a long period of time in the post-independent period, are also finding it difficult to reproduce their systems and produce any surplus over and above, or even over and above their investments, or even maintain a decent standard of consumption levels. And of course, the way out is to take the loans for consumption purposes or investment purposes, and because of the low rate of profitability or the low viability of agriculture that we normally see, generally see across the country, what one finds is that these loans often turn out into bad loans, and thereby start crippling the production systems of even these classes. That is not to deny that there is a small section amongst even these wealthy ruling classes in the rural areas which are using the agrarian crisis as an opportunity. And the moot point that I want to submit to the audience here is that primary exploitation of labor by peasant households on the farm activities is not really enough to carry on a process of capitalist accumulation in the current context of policies that is existing in the country. But it's mostly the unequal relations of exchange that are emerging out of the output market, the input market, the credit markets, which actually is leading to extraction of surplus from agricultural production, extraction of value by a certain thin minority of ruling elite in the country. And for example, if you see that in this whole period of crisis of 15 years that the agricultural sector has undergone, and you have had mass suicides of farmers, if you look at the balance sheets of most fertilizer companies or most pesticide companies, you will see that they have made huge profits during this period of crisis. So it's basically a domination of organized market capitalist forces on the petty producer, where the income of the petty producers gets squeezed in the whole scheme of things. But the more troubling concern that remains for the agricultural sector today is that even this minority of the ruling elite, which is extracting some surplus or some value and therefore accumulating wealth even in this context of the crisis, are not really reinvesting the accumulated or extracted surplus back into agriculture. And that is quite expected, given that there are other sectors within the economy which has a much higher rate of profits. And these are largely non-agricultural sectors where the money is being or the extraction, the surplus that is extracted from agricultural sector is redirected into the non-agricultural sectors. And just to elaborate on this or give you an example, there is currently there is a movement which is going on in the southern part of the country. It's called the Prof holiday movement. It's happening in a province called Andhra Pradesh in the southern part of the country, in the coastal region. And it is essentially, well, the official discourse is that it's essentially about the agrarian crisis, and the landowners are demanding a higher support price for the rice that is grown. And they're asking for a doubling of the support price. But on the face of it, it looks like a progressive movement. But if one goes into the details of it, and which several observers are pointing out now, one sees a very important contradiction, internal contradiction within the peasantry or between the landowners and the cultivators that has emerged as a part of, or which has got manifested in this crop holiday movement. What happened was that there was an initiative by the state government to ensure that loans which were being given or credit which was being given for on land titles are actually used in agriculture. What does that mean? Well, what was actually happening is that these landowners are mostly absentee landlords, and they have been leasing out land to the tenant cultivators for getting it cultivated. But these landowners also use their or showed their land to get credit on basis of these land titles for the purpose of agricultural activity, for the purpose of cultivating these lands, but were actually redirecting these huge sums of money to real estate investments in and around the larger cities that are there in this region. So it was basically crop loans getting redirected illegally, you may say, to the sectors which actually allowed a speculative rate of profit to these landowners. So what the government tried to do was to give license to the cultivators, to the actual cultivators of the land, and pass a law which says that only these licensed cultivators are going to get a crop loan on the basis of these lands. But that means essentially that a same first piece of land cannot be shown twice to any institution to get a loan. It essentially meant that the steady flow of money which was coming in for these absentee landlords, which was then being reinvested into the real estate sector, will essentially get stopped. So in order to bargain or stop this, bargain with the state and stop this initiative of the state to provide agricultural loans to the tenant cultivators, it's basically the landowners are forcibly they're stopping cultivation in this region. So although on the face of it, it looks like a struggle against the agrarian crisis, but there are more deeper contradictions which are involved there. So well, what is happening to the ruling classes then? They are shrinking, and primary exploitation of labor is no more a necessary or a sufficient condition for being a capitalist farmer in the current conditions. B, they are extracting surplus from agriculture and redirecting it to the other sectors, given the particular nature of growth, which is highly balanced or biased towards urban areas in the country, the particular nature of growth that India is experiencing for the last 15 years or so. And what is automatically happening or what is impending in the future is intrusion of large-scale corporate farms to take over agriculture in the country, because there is this talk of second green revolution being introduced, but that entire discourse is happening in a context of withdrawing or depleting state support to agriculture. So which means that if you really want to take advantage of the second green revolution, you really collaborate with the private multinational companies which are trying to enter which are there already in the seed markets and some other markets, but in a larger way in terms of contract farming or corporate farming, which essentially means that a large mass of petty producers get reduced to the condition of virtually agricultural labor on their own lands. And in order to create alternatives to this kind of corporate farming, which has not been a positive experience always in most parts of the world, we need to undertake more, and there is the need for more innovative experiments that needs to happen on the lines of cooperatives, peasant cooperatives, or collective initiatives in farming in the future, which alone, and these experiments alone, I guess, can lead to a sustainability of small-scale producers and their livelihoods of millions of rural people who are dependent on agriculture for their life. So I'll stop there.
Thank you for interpreting the challenges of